Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are here and watching on YouTube, what you want to do is actually click on the little link below to join Zoom, then click on the little link below and join Mukana, and that's where you can ask questions and vote on questions and just have general chat. So we'd love to have you. If you think you can answer some of the questions that we're going to cover, and you think that you could be part of this, you have things to add to what we're talking about, then join us. You need to be here by 6:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Once we start our mic checks, the room is closed. Now, Saturday's a slight change. When I say the room is closed, we open it again for the educators at the end of this hour, and then we'll open it again or go into a new meeting for Zoom OSC. So Saturday's a slightly different, but generally you need to be here by 6:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time to be part of the conversation. If you want to make sure that everything's working, you can get here as early as 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, we talk about all kinds of things, but we also go through people's kits if they show up and say, hey, I'm trying to test a mic or I'm trying to test my video. That's a really great time to do that. First hour, of course, is open questions. This whole show is run by you. So if you're the viewer, you are the producer, and your job is to take down questions between these shows, write those questions down, put them in here, vote on those questions so that you can basically order the run of show for us. We're lazy. We're just sitting here and then we'll discuss them. Your job is to actually decide what we're going to discuss and when we're going to discuss it. Our job is just to talk about them. So I can't promise that we'll answer all the questions, but we will do the best we can. So that's all we can promise. Anyway, we'll have education in the second hour. We've got Zoom OSC, of course, at 9, and we'll go ahead and give it a start here. Bill, take it away.
All right. Our first question this morning comes in from Guy Cochran, and Guy is interested in knowing what is a jellyfish and how do editors use it?
Plant. It was a planted question. Fake.
Go ahead, Chris. Do you want to talk? Do you want to swing out?
I don't want to steal Guy's thunder. So, I'm sorry, there's a pop-up here.
Guys, right.
Paul, is it Paul? Paul's here. He just bought one. It is a very fast, very large 10 gigabit hard drive. Super cool. Why don't you is it Paul? There's a
Bill.
Yeah, I'm on. So
tell us about it, Paul.
So I didn't buy one. We built one. We built one using FreeNAS. So I've got a really great IT DevOps person that's helping me create all my infrastructure. I'm more of the director level, and I've got a really awesome team that helps me build out the tools to make all these things work. So we built a rack server. On my rack, it's a dedicated machine that has, if you could share the screen, I believe I got, it's like a 36 core tool. I've got a RAID configuration of SSD. If I could be allowed to share the screen, I'll share just a quick config screen. It's that one there. There you go. I can't see my spec, but you can sort of look through there what the operating system is and what, so we've got, starting out with just a couple terabyte SSD drives that are in a RAID configuration and using the FreeNAS operating system. 10 gigabit connectivity to my recently upgraded 10 gigabit network. I tested it just 2 days ago, and I was excited to let Guy know I was able to run vmix. I did one major, the main output right to it, and then I had 4 multi-quarter outputs running to the same exact system on the same exact drive. So I was literally recording 1080p. I didn't test 4K yet. 1080p, 5 streams of video and audio, recording concurrent, and having somebody else access it remotely and pull up. I had the multi-quarter stopping at 1-minute chunks. So as I ran it for 30 minutes, I literally had 4 multi-quarter streams outputting at 1-minute chunks. And I had somebody remotely connecting through VPN, loading up the videos from my multi-quarter and watching them play in real time while I was still recording and broadcasting a live stream. So it was really cool, and it was more affordable than the official Jellyfish, but there's a Jellyfish DIY website. You can find it. Tells you how. We followed most of those instructions.
Go ahead, Bill, and then John.
So The actual Jellyfish, the one that everybody got its name from, was a product that was created by LumaForge. LumaForge is a tech company in Southern California that was there early in the days of Mac networking, when people were interested, particularly in Final Cut Pro 10 workflows, and they were starting to migrate out into the world. Jellyfish got its huge name because the Swiss broadcast system, the national broadcast system in Switzerland, needed to switch over. They were interested in using Final Cut 10, but they weren't sure if it was going to work. So they did an unbelievably rigorous engineering test to see what systems, and they put Avid and Premiere and Final Cut and everything else through the ringer. And I have been told, although I don't know this is a fact, that Swiss engineers are pretty particular about measuring everything. At the end of that test, they determined that the Jellyfish of that era and at that time was hands down the fastest and most reliable networking solution for connecting Macintoshes running Final Cut 10, and in fact worked faster and more reliable than the other systems they tested them against, including Avid and other things. That was the origins of the Jellyfish idea. Moved into today, so for I would say 4 or 5 years, if you wanted really fast networking of Final Cut in circumstances like that, you had to kind of go to a Jellyfish, because they had engineered a lot of special things about how video frames are cached and released. I would not be surprised if by now, some years later, other engineering teams have either looked at their work or done their own work and created systems that are similar to that. But that was where the Jellyfish came from. That's why it got its reputation.
Good, John. Bretta?
Hey, Paul, I noticed on your media type, it said 1000 base T. That's 1 gigabit. Is that not displaying properly, or is it not configured for 10 gig?
What you're looking at right now, or what was on that screen share?
Yeah, the screen share.
That may have, I took that 2 nights ago. So it should have been configured. That fryer is connected direct only through the 10 gigabit backhaul. So I'll look deeper into that. Again, I've only had 3 days of use on it. In the one graph, the donut graph, I believe it was the orange. What was really cool about it was running most of its processing in cache, and it was still only hitting a single-digit percentage of utilizing of the processing capabilities of that system too. So this is just some techie things that we saw. If you email me more specific tech questions, and I'll have the guy who built it help get us more information specifics on it.
Go ahead, Chris.
I'll be the first to admit that I am honored to spend time with the smart people of this group on a daily basis. And half the time I feel like I'm about to get kicked out because I don't know what I'm talking about. But the thing that impresses me about big data, a lot of fast data, is one, that people can build it. And it's impressive, Paul, that your guys were able to do that. What I like about the LumaForge product is that Sam Messman, who was behind all of that, decidedly didn't like networking. And he said, this has to be friendly enough that he could use it. And therefore, like somebody like I can use it. So it's always a trade-off when you're looking at this type of a solution. Can I build it myself? Do I really have the ability to build it myself? Or does it have to be something that I can administer and I can run? That's a really important thing to think about when it comes to network storage.
Let's go to the next question.
Oh, okay. John Preto of Las Vegas is in next, and he says, Alex, since I have a little room behind my desk, I've found that your autopoles may be the perfect solution to mount lights, camera, and mic. I want to mount a small piece of truss horizontally versus the autopoles. Think a goalpost configuration. What clamps do you think would be best to mount the small truss to?
Go ahead, Bill.
I was hoping my phone was up because I have exactly that configuration. I'm going to try to show it to you here.
While Bill's working on that, TJ.
Yeah, sorry, my phone timed out. I'll get it up here.
I had autopoles in my photo studio, and I used Bogan super clamps to mount stuff. I had paper rolls hanging from that, and they weigh a whole lot of weight and never had a problem.
Okay, here we go. So autopoles, There we go. There's that's up to my left. And so that is an auto pole goal post right there. Those are the vertical auto poles. And then I've mounted using Bogen Manfrotto super clamps. They're like Mafer clamps, these horizontal aspects. So you can easily goal post with auto poles using a standard set of Mafer clamps and any kind of horizontal pole. The top one is actually white painted conduit. You can do that. Or I used a larger 1¼ inch diameter pole because I have curtains hanging and other things that need a little more weight bearing.
And so by auto pole, you're really talking about specifically the Manfrotto.
The Manfrotto auto pole. Yeah. The ones, and the key to them is they have rubber bumpers on each side. They are adjustable. You can pull them out and then screw one to tighten the basic thing. But then there's a lever action handle that when you click it down applies outward pressure, or if you're using them vertical, up and down pressure to hold the pole in place so that it has more stability.
What I'm probably going more old school, but what I'm putting up is going to be just speed rail, and then using speed rail and then you can, with speed rail, you can apply pressure to the sidewalls as well. You can get these larger pads that do it. I don't think that speed rail is going to be more expensive than the auto poles. I think that it'll probably be less expensive in general for the mass. The thing that costs you money with speed rail is the connectors. So I am looking at the ones that someone posted the other day. They're kind of like the generic version of speed rail. So I'll take a look at it. But I've, in the past, everything I've built has been with speed rail with Hollander, fixtures. And it's been really good. Although I am intrigued by some of the designs. Actually, I looked through the company that someone posted the other day. I don't have it right in front of me now. But I am intrigued by that design. Go ahead, TJ.
Just one thing from my own experience, auto poles are incredibly strong and can hold a lot of weight vertically. Horizontally, I would never put hardly any, I would never use one horizontally, period.
And, speed rail I can hang from. A couple of us can hang from. So, it's that, that's the difference, but it's a little bit more geeky. The speed rail is not going to be nearly as easy to put up. It's probably, it's expensive when you start buying all the fixtures that you want. But it's pretty slick. Go ahead, TJ, and then Sky, and then Chris.
Yeah, just to be clear, the auto pole itself is meant to hang lots of weight upon, so you can hang bars that go horizontally. Just don't use the auto pole, in my opinion, to go horizontally. You put them vertically, and then you just hang all sorts of stuff on them.
I'm gonna put two auto poles behind my desk because I only have like 5 inches behind my desk, and then mount a small piece of truss, which is sitting back here on this TV. There's, the teeny mini trusses,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then mount camera and some lights off of that.
You should have no problem.
Well, I did that similar concept, and you can also get extenders to those auto poles. So that way, if you ever needed to do like a 30-foot ceiling or something like that. And so I had that as it was a piece that I could buy as an add-on. So that way I'm using that as my cross piece. Plus I'm just hanging these little LED lights that are not the weight of a big 1K, camera or one big light anymore. So use case, and to your point, TJ, I am using it horizontally, but very carefully. And I'm also not expecting the friction to do all the holding. I'm putting brackets at the other ends, and also not putting a lot of weight in the middle. And the third thing would be Brian of the panel also found that bar that you put in the back of your truck and the back of semi trucks was like $30, and it's a little different function, but he looked into it, and that's what he's built into his production studio. So there's alternate options.
Next question.
Moving on to TJ Asher of Minneapolis, Minnesota, who says, has anyone had a look at MetaHuman Creator from Unreal Engine? Have we finally crossed the uncanny valley? And he has a link.
It's stunning. So I'm on a list, an email list that is mostly folks that work at, big visual effects companies and graphics and everything else. And it was just on fire when the MetaHuman stuff was dropped out. It's been one of those few posts that just everyone went absolutely bonkers. It looks so good, and I think I tweeted it out. It is stunning. So what MetaHuman is that you can define a person. So it has tons of data built into it, and there's been other versions of this for years, but it looks like they really nailed it, which is that you have a person and you can just change facial structure and everything else within limits. You just pull a little, there's no like, oh, I have to remodel something. You just pull the jaw out a little bit, you push the nose in a little bit, but everything you do is done realistically. It just kind of does what it needs to do, and it gives you back a nearly photoreal person. I don't know if it's photoreal, but it's pretty darn close. That then has all the rigging built into it. So when you do all of those things and you make all those things work, it's like the ultimate version of Poser. If anyone remembers Poser, that you can sit there and just tweak everything just the way you want it, but then it just works in Unreal, and it's got all the facial stuff. So it's got a rigging set up for a camera. So you can just sit there and look at a camera and just start going, and it'll just animate the character's face. I'm sure that they'll be using positional data, and I'm sure they can accept motion capture as well. And all that stuff takes a long time. And what they've done is they built all those rules into the app. And so I have a feeling, knowing that it's Unreal, they'll make it free if you do it for Unreal and make you pay a lot of money if you want to use it anywhere else. So it's one of the most amazing pieces of 3D software I've seen come out in a decade. Like, it's truly unbelievable. And we'll play with it more when it's released. It's not an open release right now, but it'll be coming out, I think, in the Q3. I think this is what they're aiming for. So, but it's unbelievable, and is it uncanny valley? It probably will be living in an uncanny valley, but what it really opens up for is two things. One is, if you want an avatar that looks, if you think about Ready Player One, having an avatar that does what you want it to do and looks like somebody that you designed, it's there. It'll do that. Number two is for lots of things where you just want animated, someone talking and giving you a tour or talking about something or walking you through something. You no longer have to go through the trouble of building that character. If it's humanoid, it'll be there for it. So it's revolutionary. Just truly revolutionary. Go ahead, Paul.
Alex, could you do like a LiDAR image of a real human and import it into the MetaHuman creator?
We had a discussion about that. It's not in the first version. It's not out of the question that it could do it. But it's not in the first version will not do that. You'll have to do it by hand. You have to kind of match the person by hand by changing the parameters. Having it auto build the parameters was not part of the first spec. So just because it's a whole nother layer of, they just want to get it out. So they're going to get it out. And then, but it's definitely, there was like a lot of between the lines on the conversations but it could happen. You could do that. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, Adobe Character Animator, you can look into your laptop, and because of the pre-built two-dimensional images, you can do 2D animations. So I'm curious if that
You're coming in really low, by the way, Sky.
Okay, if that engine is available for this concept.
I don't know if that engine will be, but they already have their own engine that does it in 3D. That's all tied into the character. So it's all, so you'll be able to, you can move your head around, do everything. It's and for pre-visualization and for, again, corporate education, holy smokes, it is, it's going to really change a lot of things very, very fast. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see. You won't be able to, we're again, I've talked about this before, but we're moving very quickly towards a world that you should not believe anything that you see or hear. Like you just have to, and I think that people keep on saying, oh, but we want to be able to do that. Well, you can't. when my kids tell me that they want something like that, I go, I wish I had a pony, but I don't. I don't have a pony, you know, like I don't have a pony out in the back. I wish I had a little paddock with some ponies back there. We could pet the ponies and feed them and everything
there's
else.
no such thing
But I
as a
can't.
free, no such
And so
thing
the
as a
thing
free
is
horse.
that we're not going back to realism. Like we're not going back to the photos and the images and the sound. I mean, we're not going back. So you need to give that up, you know, and just realize that's not going to be something you can admit in court for much longer, because it just won't mean anything.
Is this in pre-release or is it can you go use
beta.
this now? Beta?
Use it. Yeah, they expect it Q3, I think. So, but you should check it out. I tweeted it out a couple days ago, but look for MetaHumans. Watch the video on YouTube. It's the most amazing 3D software I've seen in a decade. And we'll do more to change how we interact with education, corporate, film. I mean, it's gonna make a massive impact. So anyway, go ahead, Bill. Next question.
Ron Hoot of West Michigan says, for Guy, as we see more and more all-in-one video bars, new Bose Video Bar VB1, Aver VB342 Plus, Yamaha CS700, and more people will be work from home. Do you think these might be a better solution than the normal webcam and headset setups for the new class of work from homers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just put a link in Mukana to something that Zoom's doing that is shocking me. Everybody that has a regular Zoom license can now have a personal Zoom room. So you don't have to pay $49 a month for it. And if you're somebody who does a lot of this, you can do what Ron's talking about and get a video bar. And that would be the camera, the speakers, and the mics all in one. And some of these higher end ones have mic steering capability, which, you know, it's going to sound okay, but for a lot of the people that are within a few feet, typically these are in a like a huddle room, they would call them, and they're an all-in-one solution for like $1,000. You get everything. But of course, we would want, you know, better mics. But it's exciting that Zoom's doing this, where they're embracing the fact that like an executive at home could have a big screen TV, because it's a different experience to watch this on and interact with a like 65-inch TV. Like you feel like you really talk to somebody, because we have one in our conference room at the office, and with 1080p, it's like they're there. I mean, it really does feel like you're in another world, like you're really teleconferencing like the Jetsons. I mean, it's amazing. So I do see that as the future, and Zoom does too, by allowing this for free. So if you guys ever wanted to play with the Zoom Room software, you can now download it, install it on a computer, and you don't even have to get a portal anymore. You can now do bumps for free. It's 18, 19, whatever the base license is.
Does this run on the portal also, Guy?
Well, portal's just another device, you know. We're talking about two different things. The portal's the portal, and that is included in what they would deem a personal collaboration device. So if you install a Zoom Room for your personal use, it doesn't show up as a Zoom Room. It'll show up as a personal collaboration device, which is under your area. It's not admin. Well, it can be admin if you want, but Jonas and I in Germany have been doing some testing with this, and we were fascinated that it works. I mean, because we're doing some higher level automation with it. I'll show you guys later.
Go ahead, Chris.
Guys, you're understanding that this Zoom for home or a personal Zoom room, do you have the ability to get multiple outputs just like a normal Zoom room?
I haven't tested that yet, but it looks like it will do one. So you can hook up like a TV. I don't think that it'll do the multiples, but.
And you think it'll give
it?
So any one paid account can get one?
Yeah.
So if you have multiple paid accounts, you could do what Alex does and do a bunch of point-to-points.
I don't know about the multiple displays. We haven't tested that. We just hooked it up. This was just developing yesterday. So, I mean, this is that new.
It's going to
Why don't you know everything about it, Guy?
Because I went to sleep last 20 night.
hours.
Yeah, I know. Why didn't you pull it all-nighter so you could be ready for our show? I mean, come on now. Pick up the pace a little bit. I think that, again, what we've been seeing with a lot of executives is more and more of them are getting competitive. So I think that this is good for what I would say is lower level executives, but the C-suite, I have friends that are that's all they're doing is installing everything from Blackmagic 6Ks to A7Ss to, I have some friends that will come on here at some point, and I think their whole company uses A7Ss for their webcams. And holy smokes, I got on a meeting and I was like, I met my match. Like I was like, they look way better. Like everybody in the whole company looks way better than me. They just look like a picture. And what happened was the executives were like, they had a meeting with them and said, we want that in all of our executives need to look like that. And so when you're talking about moving moving employees, and impacting them, what I will say about most of these bars and a lot of the other stuff, and even webcams, is that it just doesn't, for the amount you're paying a high level CEO, get them a good camera, like Super 35 with a good mic and good lights. Like it's worth spending 10 grand, on a C-level executive. You should spend 10 grand on at least on their interaction, because this is how they're interacting with their employees. And now that the employees aren't coming home, this is how they're going to keep on interacting with them. Now, as a general room solution that's good enough and that you can go into it, other than the audio, I think that these things are going to be revolutionary. But I think that executives should think about playing a bigger game. John.
And Guy, have you played a little with the phone system at the same time? Zoom at home and the phone. I've got one number and I could seamlessly move before phone calls, Zoom calls in my Zoom room.
Yeah. I will say that I find the Zoom interface for phones to be really annoying. Like we actually have stopped using Zoom for that. Like if you just want to do a phone call, like a conference call on Zoom that doesn't include video, the way that the phone interface works drives me crazy, because it just doesn't, so when I click on I know this is really, I've done audio conferencing now for a long time. When I click on the call button, I should never have to touch my phone again, ever. No pounds, no entry. I have to hit pound twice. I have to go back and find my phone. Like, it's not modern to have to do anything other than I touch the button and I'm in the call. And so this extra pound thing, I'm like, oh, I got to turn my phone back on. And the reason it makes a difference is when you're joining a voice conference from a car, it's like a real pain, and you're just like, these guys, like Uber conference, you just hit it and just go, I'm in. Go to meeting in.
I'm not driving anymore. I have a SIP phone here, and when you have a phone like that, it's just a button.
I know, but it literally is, when it creates the meeting, all it has to do is go comma pound, comma pound, and it would work. Like if we just inserted that into it. So now what we have to do when we do that is we insert that. So we have to cut and paste. So what we do is we create a Zoom meeting, then we have to take it out and put it into notes, and then add the proper nomenclature, and then paste it back into the calendar. Every Zoom meeting has to do that, or people have to hit the pound.
Post-it note idea.
Yeah. All right. Next question.
Vincent Alvarez in Bellingham, Washington is up next. And Vincent says, yesterday on office hours, there was mention of, in VLC, being able to remove on-screen symbols of play, pause, and so forth, and the ability to not show the file name at the start of playing the file. Could someone demo how that is achieved?
I don't know if anyone can demo it right now. I will say in general that while we can do VLC playout, I would not recommend VLC for playout. Like, that is not what it's built for. You're kind of pulling a really big rig with a Chevette. When you do that, like, you got a big old, when you're going to pull the bumper off, it just, I've seen a lot of people do it, and invariably it gets messy. Like, you see someone's mouse, you see the interface pop up, you see bad frame rates, they used VLC for the RNC, the Republican National Convention, streamed to YouTube through VLC, and you could tell because the IP showed up a couple times, at the top, that they were pulling from AWS, and I was like, come on, guys, like it's like, that was pathetic. So don't use VLC for like anything that's going to be publicly facing, in my opinion. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I use I use remote PC. It works pretty well with audio. I've had pretty good luck with it, but probably the same limitations as VNC, Alex.
This is for playout. This is maybe I'm misreading this. VLC? Yeah, VLC, not VNC.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of VNC, sorry.
But if you're going to do anything regularly, you should find a real playback system, like a QLab or a MIDI or something like that. But like, use something that's, use something that was built for this, not VLC or QuickTime. Like it's just not appropriate for events. Go ahead, Bill.
If I'm not mistaken, VLC is an open source project that's been going for years. Fabulous video parser, and I use it all the time for
I have it on every
transporting.
computer.
Yeah,
I use VLC all the time. I don't
to
use it
Alex's
play out.
point, if I was doing something public and I wanted to keep it in my lane, it's not the right tool because it's open source. Anybody who's studied enough can hack into it and mess with you.
I mean, the problem is I'm not worried about that. It's just like when you see someone's mouse or you see the play head, you are immediately in amateur hour, like immediately. So why you don't want to take any chance of having your mouse or the play buttons appear. And if it's, it's not, anyway, I'd recommend against it. Okay. Next question.
Talak Lopez Waterman, our friend in New York, as I ponder an upcoming show, I wonder if there are any plugins for Vectorworks of other 3D or other 3D modeling programs to programs that match certain pan, tilt, zoom cameras that we can pre-visualize our presets at all. I'd love to place a camera in a 3D room, look and see and find the best camera placement.
There is a camera set for SketchUp that it doesn't match that the PTZ camera specifically, but if you have their field of view, you can definitely previs. We use it all the time. Previs what cameras are where and what they're where they should be. Go ahead, Sky.
I also used your suggestion earlier of the LiDAR concept from your iPhone 12 and your iPad. And I went onto the site, I took a concept of it, and then from my phone or from my laptop or my iPad, I was able to look at what a different angle would look like. We'll look at where the sight lines were, the blockings, and what also the depth issues. So there's an option.
I definitely think that if you think about Artemis, there's other programs now other than Artemis, but if you think about that program, a lot of us use that for a long time to visualize. You can say, I have a Super 35 cent, I have a Blackmagic 6K. You just draw it down, and I'm at this focal length on that camera, and it will show you through your iPhone what you're going to see from where you're standing. Because it just scales up your input. I think that's what Talak wants to do, but in CG. And I think that I don't think that the tools are here yet, but I do think that what Sky's talking about, which is the being able to do LiDAR, and then being able to take your phone and have it replicate the field of view of a given camera, and being able to walk around and say, well, this is where I'm going to go over here, is going to be a pretty exciting option. Next question.
Ray Harris in Houston wants to know how the Clubhouse experience went from the technical perspective.
What do you guys think?
It remarkably wasn't a dumpster fire. I think we managed to do a few things. I think
it was because we're really good at this. I think that we're well practiced, and admittedly, we leaned back on Makana pretty quickly. Like I don't know what it would have been like if we didn't have some kind of back channel. Paul and then Sky.
Yeah, we hit the ground running big time. It was awesome because we all knew each other, and we can take cues from each other, and we know when to break in or not talk or talk. And I really like that, adding that to this, where we can have people come in with audio.
Yeah, we had one person that wasn't part of our normal panel that I brought in just because I was bringing people in quickly. And I left a couple people out, and I put one person in, and the only audio problems that we really had were that one person. They were fine. They didn't do anything wrong. They had good things to say, but they were breaking up all the time. And so, so that was the only bit of it. I still don't know how important it is to bring people in from Clubhouse, given that as I keep on going through a lot of the Clubhouse events, they are a limited number of people that have been promoted as, we're going to talk to these 5 people and you're all going to listen. And there isn't any, I'm just hearing very little interaction with the folks listening. So I'm not clear what the expectation is in Clubhouse that people are actually going to be able to talk. Because I keep on running into ones where there is no talking. Go ahead, Sky.
Well, again, he's talking about technical. I totally agree. We've got a discipline. You've raised the bar. You've created expectations of us. Socially, we've also got a discipline. We understand a higher structure. Consequently, I think it's not going to go away. So I think if we can be an example of structure as well as the technical, I think it's a good thing.
The thing is that I think that if you're listening on Clubhouse, if we promote this and you're listening to us on Clubhouse, you're going to hear a conversation that sounds better, that runs smoother, that has, that just goes from thing to thing to thing better than most Clubhouse things. And again, I don't think that most people have the expectation of speaking in Clubhouse. Correct. Given 90% of the ones that I'm hitting, there's no audience. Audiences aren't jumping in, especially on the bigger ones. They're just jumping in to listen.
And Grant had the Clubhouse open yesterday, and I was listening, and we had somebody walking around his campus talking to us. And so
we could definitely bring people in over the Clubhouse. I'm just not sure if it would really make any difference.
That'll be a good technical test. It'll be a good technical test in the future.
I definitely, this weekend, I'm going to have the interaction. I think I can have the whole thing. I got pieces of it all here, but I think I can have it all running this weekend where we're, able to, tie it all together. So it'll be this weekend or early next week, but I can definitely send to Clubhouse. The question is whether I can create the two-way back and forth with Clubhouse. This is the next piece of that puzzle.
Talk to Grant. He was testing it yesterday also.
We could put our MetaHumans here on Zoom and then have audio from Clubhouse.
Yeah, exactly. That would be crazy. All right, next question.
If we turned on our LiDAR, could we operate Avatar? Never mind.
No, we talked about doing a CG version of Twit a long time ago, probably 2006. We talked about doing CG heads that were our voices and then just simply bouncing around, and that you could have it be in the video and everything else. We're not that far away, from doing that right now.
They'd call the show Never a Blemish.
Yeah, go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, one more thing on the Clubhouse technical. I remember when I went to speak, you said that you couldn't hear me, so I dropped out. But the thing that got me was like, is it a Wi-Fi or is it cellular? Because we had this discussion yesterday with Tucker.
Cellular works better.
Cellular works better.
Yeah, okay. I definitely found that Clubhouse is more stable with cellular than it is with Wi-Fi. That I've been hitting over and over and over again, because it's really low latency. I think that's the issue, is that Clubhouse is trying to make it super low latency. And because of that, it's really not very forgiving. And the phone is designed for that, but Wi-Fi is not good for that super low latency interaction. And so I think that Clubhouse is almost always better in a cellular network. Next question.
John Broman is coming in next, no place given. I'm trying to improve my Zoom meetings with clients. I own OBS, an ATEM Mini, Mix Pre, Blue Yeti, and a Stream Deck. My cameras are a Brio 920 and iPhones with HDMI adapters. I'm ready to go, but I want as simple a process as possible to begin. The client data is on at least 5 different platforms, but all available through Chrome. And I guess he's just looking for what would the panelists look at first to get him up and running.
Guy, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, I was just looking at it like that's what I would say to, not my mom, but somebody that I wanted to bring up, not at the Blackmagic Pocket 6K level, but that's a nice package. I think that's perfect. I'm not sure where he's going wrong. I mean, a Brio looks sharp. You use those on that Dolby event. They look tack sharp. It's got a Mix Pre. That's great audio. The Blue Yetis, as long as it's properly positioned, is great mic.
I'm sensing he has all the hardware he needs. All you need to do is use it, which means maybe gather your friends and do test runs, because that's a lot of connection and you won't be comfortable unless you do it over. So after you've done 5 or 6.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure why you have multiple cameras if you're doing stuff mostly looking at data on Chrome. So, what I would probably do is have I would only have one camera, but I would use some kind of Blackmagic camera so that I can shade it with. I wouldn't buy anything today because Blackmagic's doing an announcement on Wednesday. But I would I would use a Blackmagic camera with the Blackmagic switcher. That simplifies a lot of things because you're now able to focus, color, everything else from the camera. So I'm not saying you should buy a 6K, but a 4K or even the micro, you're going to be able to control it remotely. And that just really simplifies a lot of things. And then I would have 2 computers that were feeding the Chrome windows, and probably could be little PCs, but that are feeding 2 of those HDMI ports, so that you have 2 different, you can cut between different Chrome windows. You could do 1, but I'd have 2 of those. And then I'd have one that I had some kind of app with some kind of drawing on it. I have my own app to do that. Eventually we'll get it released, but you can use any drawing program, so you can draw over top of things and then key that in. And for client presentations, that's pretty useful. I guess I'd say, go ahead, John.
I don't see any lights on his list. And I was wondering if he was related to Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago.
No one knows. All right, next question.
Chad Lafarge of St. Louis, Missouri is in with, does anyone care to speculate about what will be announced by Blackmagic on Wednesday? And he's got a link.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
You know, when this was asked yesterday, I talked about possibly making a smaller mini to move out. But then I started thinking about it, and we didn't touch on the camera side of things, and it made me really start to think, how could they change the camera so it works better with the Mini and the Mini Pro and the Mini ISO? And I came to 2 ideas. One, having some sort of ability to do some sort of similar to a Stream Bridge type thing that would go into the Mini, but more to the point, something that could be IP connected. I think that's where they're going to go with that, more on the camera side than the Mini side.
The 2 things that jump out at me is the ability to go to 4K from the camera and to the Mini. So the Minis could theoretically be upgraded. I mean, maybe they have enough headroom. I don't know if they do or not, but maybe they have enough headroom to actually just flip them on and have them go to 4K. So then these little Minis become a 4K switcher and the cameras already are 4K outputs. So that could be one thing. Another thing would be true HDR support. So PQ and HLG support from the cameras through the Minis. Now that you're able to stream, now that the Mini, the Pro and the ISO could stream, you theoretically could do, I was thinking about this last night. You theoretically could do HDR streaming to YouTube from your Mini and your cameras, and nothing else in the world could do that. Like it would be, it would be a thing, they would, and so I don't know if it's possible. I also don't even know how to stream to YouTube. I've been bouncing around. I went through their instructions. I'm wondering whether I need to be clear listed somewhere on YouTube to be allowed to stream HDR, because I can't, it'd be great if someone looked at it. What you're supposed to do is go in, create a live event, go into the live event, set a new stream key, and in there you're supposed to be able to choose HLS. And I can't find that option in either. I have one account that's got, this account has 4,000 some people, and I have another one that has 18,000, the old Pixelcore site. Can't find the option. So I'm wondering whether there's some limit, usually the 10,000 person limit, where they start adding extra features, but I haven't found it. Go ahead, Bill.
This is not going to happen, but it'd be really cool if we saw tomorrow a Blackmagic webcam. It sits on your laptop, a little tether down to a box that does all this transcoding and things like that, then goes to either USB or HDMI, depending on what your computer needs. And then all the software that Alex loves in terms of shading and stuff like that built into the Magic Box. That'd be pretty awesome.
There's so many people that want the micro put into a PTZ. And like, if you talk to someone at Blackmagic and you say that, they just roll their eyes like, yeah, you and everybody else. Like, everybody talks about it. Like, everybody talks about the idea that you could put a micro in with a great Blackmagic PTZ, and that we're like, you would run the world, because everybody needs that solution. But that could be another option. Go ahead, Beju, and then TJ.
Going back to the YouTube 4K, when they originally rolled that out, you had to use the API keys to create the event and create the stream event for it. You couldn't do it directly through the interface.
It's not in the instructions from YouTube. It doesn't say that you have to do that. It says that you have to set up the stream key in the YouTube control room, and it's not available. Go ahead, TJ.
You do that, but I think to create the event, because when they launched it in beta earlier, 6 months ago, at that time you specifically had to go through the API only. So I think they might not have baked it fully in. That could be an issue.
Okay, because if you follow their instructions, YouTube's instructions on how to do it, it's not there. Good. I'm working. Obviously, I'm trying to figure it out with some folks. Anyway, TJ.
Yeah, Kevin Murphy posted something in chat that got me wondering how long before they announce integration with the new Frame.io camera to cloud solution.
Yeah, I mean that could be interesting. I mean, it could be interesting if it becomes a bandwidth issue, but it could be interesting if the mini ISO could just push ISOs to Frame.io. It would be kind of cool. It would be kind of interesting. Go ahead, Mickey.
Does the Ursa Mini have any network interface?
Not currently. But
Okay,
I mean,
if they do that, they would
USB-C,
still need
you have a lot of options. You know, you can do a lot of things with a USB-C connection.
or that tear deck.
Yep. So it'll be interesting. Next question.
Kevin Murphy of Palm Desert, California says Twilio and Signal Wire both mention SMS, short message service, which is kind of texting, network access fees coming. Is SMS still relevant to live event engagement? How? And note, charging a new fee per SMS message, higher fee if you don't register the campaign with each carrier.
It is relevant to some degree for certain populations. So if you're in the emerging world, or if you're in the older populations, SMS is still something that my mom still texts me in SMS. so it's still something that is useful in some areas, but the vast majority of people that generally would join an online event are using something else or capable of using lots of things. Go ahead, John.
We used a service called Trumpia, which is still out there, but Twilio's bigger these days. And every time I did a presentation, I would have people text to our short code, and I would get 90 percentile opt-ins on that. I would give away a web camera, and I'd get 90% opt-ins, and I would get their phone number and their email automatically into the database. So I still see this stuff being used everywhere.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, a lot of what they're doing is just trying to reduce spam across SMS. So there's more regulation on the short codes. There's more regulation on the individual 10-digit long codes. So now each 10-digit long code needs to be registered to a business that's going to classify the way it's going to be using that stream of messaging by a certain category. So you just can't buy a 10-digit long code anymore for $1 and use it to spam out to anybody without having the opt-out and some sort of accountability. There is over an 80-something% open rate for SMS messages compared to emails and everything else. So it still gets direct to a trusted customer. And I think there's definitely when we move into hybrid type events, I feel that this may be an opportunity to use the SMS tool as a way to bring somebody back from their coffee break at home back to where they need to be. So there's a way, there's so many different ways to connect to customers. I think that SMS is one other vehicle in the virtual meeting space or any type of virtual blend that we can make sure we're going to get them one more way. So I wouldn't count it out yet.
It's funny, I have a lot of message things, and I will admit that if someone SMSs me, I kind of take it as an insult. If I get the machine, the 83-3 whatever, I'm just angry. Like there's no time when that doesn't make me frustrated. Like, why are you filling up my stuff? And the same thing, like if I get a phone number from any phone number that I don't recognize, I'm angry. I block it. I just get blocked. Like I never want to hear from you again. If I don't know who you are, like if you didn't set it up, I'm fastidious about putting people into my contact page, so that they show up as a name. But if someone just randomly calls me from a phone that I haven't connected to before, and I don't have in the thing, I just block you. I'll never hear from you again. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, one last thing. If you have been subscribing to a service that allows you to use the same short code as a group of other people, that's going away. So people who have used like the same 8838 and used it across many, many, many subcontracts, forget it. And those things cost more than $1,000 a month to have one. So if you depended on a short code as your distribution network and it was part of a sub, forget it. That's going away as of I think June this year.
In general, I think that there is going to be a big market for membership-based interactions with lots of people, because I think advertising, spamming, all those things are about to hit this huge lip where it's hard to get to people. And I think that it's important to build a true connection with folks, because that's going to change. It's going to just be harder. Next question.
Comes from Theo Ziotos, no place given. I use 2 vmix workstations for vmix call. Any alternative platforms supporting 20 callers?
We do that in hardware. I don't know how to do it, and I don't know another way to do that. We just keep adding computers. Go ahead, John.
We're waiting with bated breath to see the Unite product from Sienna, which is supposedly unlimited scalability.
Next question.
Seth Graham in Bolton, looks like Boston, Massachusetts. Sorry, just obscured screen for a moment. Looking to multiplex several SDI feeds over fiber using CWDM. I've had success with AJA FIDO units and Blackmagic fiber converters, but I need to know if third-party SFPs on different wavelengths are compatible. Would this work, or do you have recommendations for SFP vendors?
My experience is generally different SFPs work. But they're not different wavelengths. They just happen to be, they can handle those wavelengths that are going through. So if they're in different wavelengths, I think you might have trouble. But interacting with, generally, now we generally match them. So we use, whether it's if we're going to use a rattler or a yellow brick or a Blackmagic, we tend to put the same thing on the other side. But we've definitely mixed and matched without too much trouble. But I would recommend matching them when you can. Next question.
I just learned that SFP is small form factor pluggable. Didn't know that before. Jim Wilkins of Marblehead, Massachusetts says, I'm still not clear on the benefits of Zoom Rooms. Other than easy control, are there other features or quality improvements with Zoom Rooms?
You often get a higher resolution. You have up to three screens that you can define. So it's not like randomly putting them in. I want this here, and I want this here, and I want this here. It's for putting into a room. That's why it's a Zoom Room. We use it because from a production perspective, being able to define those outputs is really useful for us. Good. Guy, were you going to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah, there's some really trick stuff. Like we have Chris calls it the bat phone. It's just a conference room phone, but it's USB over Ethernet. So I can run this conference device over long distances over the existing infrastructure. So it just kind of drops in. From there, there's a controller. So somebody walks in, they can just hit join meeting and type in the meeting ID. So it's meant to be super simple. I mean, it's meant to take the guesswork out of it. And then it's a place where there's a higher quality camera. So in ours, we have like $1,000 lumens PTZ camera, and I can let somebody else remote control it. So from afar, if we're holding up a piece of paper or a new product, somebody at the other end, if they're in Taiwan, they can zoom in on that product and take a closer look at it. But then, like Alex was saying, the 3 displays, and you can say, I want screen share on this one, I want gallery on this one, and I want active speaker on this one. Imagine 365-inch TVs like that. It's like a whole nother experience. I mean, it really is like bringing us, like, so that we don't have to fly across the country to do a presentation. I mean, it really does feel like you're just hopping around the world when you're in these environments with bigger screens. So, and then I'm going to put together this list. So this list is huge right here. There's I don't know if you can see it, but there's a list that I have of about 100 items of the differences. So I'll put that in the Mukana Zoom area, and it'll show you the differences. And you can ask some more questions in there, and hopefully we can clear it up, because it's like a second hour. I mean, we could talk about this for an hour, but we only have a few minutes. So I'll get off my soup.
That's good. That's good. Next question.
Sam Greenwood of Toronto says, have you heard of the event platform Whova? Is it good?
I haven't heard about it. I will admit that I'm not really tracking the event platforms. Like I think that they're throwing the ball in some cases where the receiver was, in some places where at best where the receiver is, but not where the receiver's running. Like, like I don't think that, I just don't think that I cursorily look at it, but the idea that you're going to reproduce any part of the physical event inside of it will work for the next year. But my prediction is that we're going to see massive, what I would call broadcast style events that are occurring starting, we're doing them already. I'm already doing them. This is something that looks more like that. But we're working on these larger events that are happening later this year. And when we look at what those look like, they don't look like physical events. They couldn't fit into the physical world. And I think that by 2023, we're going to see a situation where we're having events that are measured in millions of people. Right now, 150,000 people will max out a city, except for Vegas, and 250,000 to 300,000 will max out Vegas. I'm talking about events occurring that are bigger than those numbers, significantly bigger than those numbers. And they're going to be empowered by a lot of other tools that aren't trying to figure out how to have hallway conversations. They're going to be bigger than that. They're still going to let you break out and find birds of a feather and talk to people and have mini versions of things and break it all out. But it's not these platforms are all being based on how do I make current event planners feel comfortable, and that's not going to be what's going to happen in the future. And so that's I haven't used this one, but I look at them all and I go, yeah, still looks like they're trying to make current event planners feel like they could do what they used to do, but that's throwing the ball to where the receiver was, not where they're going. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the last real event I went to before real events weren't cool anymore was the social media week in Austin, and we used Whova. I still have it on my phone. You can't see that, but it's a pretty decent phone app to kind of track conference sessions and things like that. It just doesn't have any real world applicability anymore with the disappearance of real events.
Well, and again, I don't think that real events are going away. I just want to make sure it's clear. Like I do think there's a place for them. I think they're going to be there, but they're not going to, it's going to be kind of like what happened to radio by the 70s, right? It's not that radio went away. It's just that it no longer mattered in the same way, and that the big game was happening online, it was happening on TV. And in this case, I think that the big conferences are going to happen in the virtual world, and the physical conferences are really considered like the bespoke, cute, what we do, even 100,000 people will just seem like a little number, compared to these big. I think we will get to conferences by 2025 that have 10 to 20 million people in the conference, because we're no longer constraining ourselves to time and space, and these things will be massive, and they'll happen over months, maybe all year. And they're just like this constant, eventually they just become broadcast units, and I think that, but there's so many people we leave out by doing physical events. They are so inefficient, and we did it because we were comfortable. We were in a comfortable little safe space, but we're going to give that up. We're giving it up now. We see clients slowly, their mind is starting to get around how much bigger this could be. Next question.
Andreas Molina in Barcelona, Spain says, could you one day spend a second hour on the most common video and streaming problems and why they're caused? Thanks.
Yeah, just put that in the second hour suggestions inside of Discord, and we will absolutely discuss that. I think we can just do a Q&A. We do a lot of things where we want to do talks, but I think that we could just there is the opportunity to do Q&A of just like, hey, we're going to talk about streaming, and just let people just ask questions about streaming and not have to have a specific talk about it. So we'll definitely, that'll definitely be coming up. I thought the AWS was great. Like I was going to show more, but we just had a lot of great questions about AWS. If you're an educator, please raise your hand, and we'll jump into these quick mic checks. And if you have questions about education or comments about education, this is the time to put them in. So we've only got 2 of them, so we're going to talk about them a lot. It's going to just be a long conversation about whatever someone asked. This is the perfect day to ask a question, because we'll talk about it forever. So anyway, so go ahead and raise your hands. Mickey, do you want to do mic checks? I'm going to step away for about 5 minutes.
Hey folks, please put your first name, last name, and location here in Zoom. And on the meters, the goal is at negative 24 LUFS on the short term. Let's start off with Roscoe and then move on to Steve Cutton afterwards.
Good morning. Getting down where I can see the meters, and I'm running on the. Oh, I'm looking right in the. Good.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steve, and then Chris Clark.
Good morning. Nice morning here in Northern California. I'll be talking about this level, which is just about 25, 24.
Give us a dB or two up, Steve.
Okay, we'll do.
All right, thank you very much, Chris, and then Emily afterwards.
Good morning from Tempe, Arizona. I think I'm in the ballpark, but maybe a little hot.
Yeah. Yeah, if you could just give us a tiniest nudge down, Chris.
Easily done. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Emily, and then Aaron Graham afterwards.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody, wherever you are. It is very chilly here in New York today, and it looks like I am okay, I guess, ish. I'm in there, right? Maybe?
Yep. Yeah, you're all good. Thank you very much, Aaron, and then Michael Ball.
Good morning from Boston, where it is very cold here as well, about 20 degrees, and we're going to get hit with more snow this week, so yay.
Aaron, if you could give us just a dB or two up, tiny nudge up.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much, Michael, and then Kara afterwards.
A little bit rainy today. And am I quiet, or did that not just update?
You were muted earlier.
Oh, sorry. that makes more sense. Good morning from San Francisco, where it's a little bit rainy and it looks like I'm a little bit hot today.
Yeah, 2 or 3 dB down, I think.
A little bit. Yeah, it's nice and rainy, but the rain is welcome anywhere in California.
Bounce back up a dB,
Bounce
Michael.
back up. All right.
Yeah, thank you very
There
much.
we go.
Kara and then Tony afterwards.
Hello, good morning. It's raining here in Florida as well. Cannot say that it's that cold though. Actually, we're kind of hoping for a little bit of cold. Just one more before the steam comes.
Give us maybe 2 or 3 dB down, Kara.
Okay, Paul, you're controlling that. So looks like I'm decently. Oh, look at that outside for sky. How fun.
All right, thank you very much, Tony.
Hello, office hour educators. Good afternoon, good day, depending on where you are in the world. Greetings from Noonan, Georgia, west of Atlanta. How is everybody doing?
Are you still on your ATEM? Is your microphone still going through the ATEM, Tony?
Yes, it is.
So yeah, could you try giving us a single click down on the ATEM's level?
That is one click down on a very cloudy, rainy day.
I think, yeah, you're probably in the ballpark there. Thank you very much. I like Guy's little screensaver there.
Where is Guy? I can't even find him in the panel. Oh, there he is. Oh, now look at that. Awesome. Fading into something that looks like a Disney presentation across a lake.
I was in Vegas watching that fountain show.
Breakfast time.
Okay, I'll tell you real quick something I learned after, you only do this every day for, well, not every day, but for months. And if you rearrange your gallery view, it affects how your speaker view top bar operates. So I have 5 people running across the top of my speaker view, and I can set what 5 people are up there by changing my gallery view.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't
spend
run
an
full
incredible
screen.
amount of time moving back from speaker view to gallery view because of that. Every time somebody spotlights, it knocks me from one view to the other. And that's interesting. John, there's a command, I guess because I'm a co-host, to release video order. I wonder what that does.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've created a custom layout for the gallery view, that just reverts it to the default.
Whatever the default is.
Well, it actually, it makes it so that the other people, you can actually force your gallery view on everybody.
Yeah. Michael, you want to do a quick check?
Check 1 2 2 2. Check 1 2.
Yeah, I think you're in the ballpark there.
Copy that. Thank you.
Thank you
I
very
like
much.
the blurred.
Yeah,
The
I was
blurred,
about to say as well.
blurred screen is a big improvement over the.
Yeah,
It looks like I froze.
I know. I keep every day. I think about the background thing and how you feel about it.
I thought it looks like I froze. Hold on.
You did.
Yeah, it looks a lot better compared to the Galaxy background, or that bluish background.
So
There's
Emily,
the
you know,
controls and in preferences.
Emily, something they do in Southern California in the winter, they put flamingos in your yard for the high school kids charge like $20 to flamingo a yard.
You get flocked. We do
You
that
got-
for
Oh, do you do that?
graduation. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
They
you
do it as a
fancy people. All
fundraiser.
we could do is TP people's yards. We didn't have fancy flamingos.
Well, they do for graduation, you can flock someone. And so you pay, like $20, and then they show up at your house and they just put like 50 pink flamingos all over your yard. And you've been flocked.
Yeah,
it's much easier to
we used
remove.
We used to fork people's lawns.
No, that's
We didn't charge
mean.
for it, but it was like 2,000 forks, which is pretty easy to put together when there's 10 of you, and it really takes a long time to take out if there's one of you. So anyway, that was called a fork, and where I grew up, forking someone's lawn was that.
Problem with TP is it's really easy to throw a roll over a giant tree. Very hard to get down.
Yeah, exactly.
After it rains.
There were a couple of choice people that got TP'd and forked.
My sister got flamingoed, and she'd never heard the song "Pink Flamingos in the Front Yard."
That was always a sign. Right. That was a badge of honor, though. It's like, ooh, look.
So, so anything new for the educators? Any new? It's all the same. It's just it's like Groundhog Day. No new developments. My kids are going back to school. My son's going. My daughter's on his way and on her way, and then my son is starts up next week, I guess, which he seems to be excited about. Go ahead, Chris Clark.
Thank
you. I put a question in that answers your question. Is anything new? It seems to me that the country is moving into this level of engagement between the political side and parents and teachers, on the other hand, about pushing for a return to normal, a return to face-to-face schooling. And it seems to me that it's a poorly picked fight. That, in my opinion, there isn't enough emphasis on what will it take to make teachers feel safe or comfortable or even grateful for the opportunity to return to face-to-face teaching and learning. So I was wondering and hoping for some positive stories, or more enlightened stories than the using my power as a politician or even a scientist to push schooling to reopen face-to-face sooner than teachers feel ready to do that.
Roscoe?
Oops, you're muted on,
You're
Roscoe.
a lot quieter than we expected.
Sorry, I was typing. I was just going to offer something originally when you asked your original question, but yeah, I don't. I have to wrap my mind around the teacher battle. So let someone else answer this one, and then I will come back to the question.
And I pushed the question into the Okana.
Yeah, I'm not a teacher, but I rent a place to a teacher, and she came to me a couple days ago to borrow a green screen and said, they're pushing us back too soon. It's just premature, you know? And I see Emily nodding her head and raising her hand too.
Emily?
So the thing that I really hate is this argument, like the nightly news coming on and saying, oh, look at the Chicago school districts and the teachers are putting up a big fuss and it's the unions, it's not the schools. And some parents want their kids back and some don't and whatever. And I think they need to look at it on a more granular level and local level, because some of your buildings are newer and they have windows that open and they have ventilation systems, and, you know, having a temperature check in place and a protocol for how kids are taken care of and how many kids we're going to have in a classroom are great. The majority of schools don't have that. I mean, if you look at the New York public school system just alone, there's like some stupid number of kids, 2 million kids going to school in buildings that are, you know, haven't been updated since 1960, have windows that have been welded shut. They don't, you know, they're like, oh, well, you know, just open your doors and put fans in. And it's like, how am I supposed to feel safe when you put a plywood fan, a piece of plywood with a little window fan on it, and now you're telling me it's okay, I'm safe now? And I really have been digging for these reports that they keep referring to. And they're always like, well, according to reports from, and, you know, Europe or from here or from there. And when you look for the scientific data, the behind those, you know, snippets of news, you really can't find the actual data. So I'd feel more comfortable if I could read the actual data. Like, what is it that they found in other places, and what were the parameters of that school district or that building or those people, and stop relying on these, you know, news where they're just like, well, everybody can go back into person because, you know, Sweden never closed down and they're getting to a point where blah, 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 it's fine, you can go back to school. And it's just like, I want some real data. I want some real protocols. I want people to tell me what contact tracing is actually happening, because the people that I know that have contracted COVID as teachers were not contact traced. So how do you know where they got it from, and how do you know that the schools are safe? So there's all this unknown, and then pitting it union versus teacher versus parents. And, you know, there's not one teacher I know that doesn't want to go back into their classroom. They just don't want to go back in without knowing that they're not going to bring it home to their mother-in-law or their child who has an immunocompromised disease, or, you know, any kind of situation where it's riskier for them. And so I think if we can be honest and allay those fears, and then you have New York with Cuomo. You know, yesterday, the big news was that he lied about how many people were actually sick in nursing homes. And it was politically based because he thought he wasn't going to get the resources he needed, so he covered it up. But then if you're doing that, you know, how do we trust what you're telling us? How do we trust the CDC? How do we trust the organizations that are supposed to protect us if they just keep telling us, you'll be fine, go back, it'll be fine? It's worse for the kids. And then one more point, and then I'll stop. It's just this whole push for putting the kids back in the classroom. The kids want to be back in the classroom, you know, socially, psychologically, it's hurting them. When the kids are back in the classroom and they're sitting 6 feet apart with plexiglass between them and masks on all day, and they're not allowed to share playground equipment, and they're not allowed to play with each other, they have to remain socially distanced. Even the kids that wanted to go back, once they're back in it, they're kind of like, this isn't what I thought. Like, I think the kids are thinking, especially the younger K-12, K-8 kids, are thinking, when I go back to school, it's going to be normal again. I'm going to go back. I want to go back. But when they get there, the reality is it's not back. You know, they're very disappointed with what school actually is now. And I think that we need to take that into consideration too, and just stop making it you know, talking point, and actually look at what is it doing and how are we going to do it to make it better.
Good, Cara. No, it's great. It's great. Talk as much as you want. Good, Cara.
Yeah, I agree with, I want data as well. And I want, I listened to a podcast recently that talked about, even though it might be kind of expensive, but we could use carbon monoxide monitors to test the air flow within a room. And don't quote me on these numbers, but I feel like it was something like anything below 800 something per unit, like outside is 400. So they were saying it's kind of expensive to get a carbon monoxide monitor that actually gives you numbers, but it could be at least some type of data to show, like, no, this room is not good enough for air quality.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I think the challenge is that the inequities that existed before are only being more glaringly shown now. And we talk about schools and going back to schools. California has over 10,000 schools. Its smallest school district has 18 students. Its largest district is the second largest district in the country. So there's no way that the CDC can set a standard that's going to meet all those. There's no way the solution for a school that has only 18 people is going to roll out carefully in LA. So I think that's the biggest challenge now. People want simple solutions. I looked at the CDC guidelines, and if all the schools met those, we could open. But the chances of all the schools meeting that because of deferred maintenance, lack of funding, lack of good leadership. So I think this is a much bigger problem. And there's a whole different problem when we look at higher ed. I think Roscoe is going to go in that direction. But look at California, 10,000 schools, over 10,000 schools, so diverse, rural, urban. How could any one solution or even guidelines make that work? Because it's all locally funded, state supported.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris Clark.
My question asks for some success stories or some more optimistic and innovative approaches. I may have tuned out, but I didn't hear.
My daughter, I will tell you something funny. My daughter was talking about, she takes her music courses online, on over Zoom. And someone plays, they'll play a flute or something. Everyone just plays along with them. That's kind of how they're doing it. And so but she said at some point they decided to open up all the clarinets or whatever and just let them play into Zoom. She said it's just insanity. Like it's all these different delays and they're all trying to play it. And they just did it for fun. But it was just like a really fun moment for them all. It's just like this crazy, they let the kids just create this crazy experience, and then have it go back to whatever it was doing. And so it's, I think that, I will say, watching my kids, I feel like the reason we don't like online school, there's the practical things of parents not knowing. Like, for instance, now the halfway between is way worse for us as a parent. So we drop our daughter off at 8 and then we pick her up at 10 and then we have to drop my son off at the same time, but then have to pick him up at 12. Like, the whole day is just, because we don't have buses. And so the whole day is us driving the kids to school. Like, it's not like, like, I just wish we just do it one way or the other, but it's this halfway mark is kind of a nightmare logistically. So we're kind of splitting up this issue. So I think that's it. But I keep on coming back to, there are some teachers that are doing really, really well, but usually either their school district or or both invested in their kit. It really is just the teacher kit. Like, if they took these billions of dollars and gave every teacher a $5,000, $8,000 kit, that may seem like a lot of money, but we're about to spend another $130 billion, and supplying those kits to the teachers would cost $20 to $30 billion. $8,000 kits would cost $20 to $30 billion. So it's not even cresting over that. And then they all have a really nice kit that they could show things with and outline things and draw on things and have everything. And I still believe that they probably wouldn't go back. I mean, they'd go back to physical, but they'd want to have those kits in the classroom. like they would be, because your ability to show content is so much higher, with the kits than you ever could do on a blackboard. And they could be using all this money for that. And I think that, again, the reason people say, oh, it's not very good, it's because we didn't give them the tools. It's like, everything's hard to put all those nails in if all you have is a screwdriver. You're using that. I mean, that basically is a bunch of teachers with the base of a screwdriver trying to pound nails in, and then, or they only give them a hammer when they have to use the screws. Like, that's what's happening right now, is that it doesn't work because we didn't give the teachers the tools, the resources that they needed to teach online. We kept on going, well, we're going to keep on going back. We're going to keep on going back. We're going to keep on going back. I mean, if the South African strain hits the United States, we're not going to go back for another year. Like that's, like, if it expands, like, everything's been invalidated. Like, they're trying to say that nicely, but if you read between the lines of what the epidemiologists are saying, it's basically like, it's reset. if the South African one or anything worse than that gets into the general population, you're basically resetting all the vaccines. Erin?
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about whenever I do return to the classroom, how I'm taking all of this with me. Because now that I have figured out the best ways to go about this, I don't know how I'm going to do this inside my classroom. And hearing from my students this week that one of my questions of the day was like, what do you like about school? And right now, and they say they love this type of school. Some of them are coming out of their shells like they never would have in the classroom. So I'm just trying to figure out how to bring this all with me and make it successful in the classroom.
Yeah. Next question. Oh, good. Roscoe. Then we'll go to the next question.
That mute button off there. Well, from a personal side, my daughter has 9 students out right now, 1 that has COVID and 8 that have been vectored out. And the greatest answer for her was the fact that she's living with my wife's parents. They got their first vaccine shot. And that is bringing so much comfort to her, because her greatest fear is she goes and brings that home and spreads it. So I think Chris was looking for the positives. That's the positive, Chris. On my side back here in California, we just closed down my university for another 3 weeks. My university, now that's not overall, that's not a big thing because only 1.3% of the classes were actually meeting on campus. But to my students, that's 100% of my class. We are about doing production on campus. So it's a big deal. We are scrambling literally to try and do what we're trying to do in the time we have remaining this semester. So these kids are going to be not learning as much as they could.
Good, Chris.
One kind of a wonky comment is that I think the big picture has been misframed as a problem to be solved. And leaders are looking for the single solution that's going to work to break the dam and solve the problem. But it's not a problem, it's a dilemma. And dilemmas can't be solved. They don't have a single optimal solution. They have to be managed. Each time you tilt toward reopening, for example, you raise the risk or you pay a cost in terms of spread of the virus. Or each time you tilt toward minimizing spread, you pay a cost in terms of dissatisfaction of parents or politicians who want to return to normal as quickly as possible. So I suspect that it's a big ask that that our society shift to thinking in a more sophisticated way about situations like this, and relatively unprecedented, at least in contemporary times. And define it as a dilemma and recognize that it takes a different kind of thinking to manage a dilemma compared with solving a problem at one brilliant stroke.
The thing that's interesting is that the corporations, of course, because they can move more decisively, are moving in a much different direction, which is that they're moving towards flex hours, people working from home. I have a bunch of friends at Facebook. They're like, we're never going back to the office. Like, we might go in every once in a while, like once a month or something like that. But a lot of them are just moving out of the Bay Area. I have friends that I can't mention where they went, but because they're still officially in the Bay Area, but they're, not in the Bay Area anymore. And so but they're never going back. Salesforce has announced that, Twitter's announced that, Dropbox, all these other folks, they're not going back. So what's interesting about that from a school perspective is that where the world is going is decentralized. Like where the schools now are going to be going the other direction. If they go back to physical environments, they're going the other direction from where everything else is going to go. Which is people can live wherever they want to live. They can do what they, they're going to be part of that, that piece, and eventually they're going to want their kids to be able to do the same thing. It's not, it's eventually it's not going to happen immediately. But what happened this year is going to, in a decade, I think, the idea that we have to go to a physical location will seem antiquated. John, and then Michael, and then Bill.
Yeah, I think the changes that are going to happen in higher ed are really going to be major. And many of them were issues that were problems before COVID, and now they have to be addressed. The student loan debt issue. So if we see student loans forgiven and free higher education in some form, that's going to change the way universities function and work. The CSU is the largest system in the country. The chancellor sort of indicated that when they extended the enrollment was because enrollments were down. They said, well, we're going to be back live in the fall. But the sort of the beat on the street is we're probably not going to be live back in the fall, maybe more than the 1% Roscoe has. But you do another academic year and you have changes in student loan and changes in what schools students go to. For the CSU, we're seeing increases because why pay $60,000 or $80,000 if you're going to be studying remotely with a CSU that's only $20,000? And then you start connecting that money with student loans and stuff. We're really going to change how universities function, how people make choices of where they go. I think it should be a much larger change in the long term than we can imagine.
I think that I've been thinking a lot about we just have to really think about whether students need to go to four-year colleges all the time. I mean, Germany's figured that out a long time ago. Like they figured out how to do this. But, the idea is number one is students could learn so much more in school than they do now that would be practical. I think that's I think as a parent watching it, I'm just like, and I've said this before, but I just feel like we've given them a bunch of theoretical information that they, like I was teaching my daughter fractions. I'm talking about fractions and solve for n and everything else. I was very quickly, what hit me was I really wish they would just teach her Excel. like the fractions are great, but you can still understand the concepts, but I don't need to, like, showing her it. I had to rethink how to do it. Now I know how to do it, but I had to like rethink the weird little thing that I have to do. And this thing, I have to divide this on this side and that side and all this stuff. And I was like, she's never, as I was doing it, I was thinking, I think I might have blurted it out. She's never, ever going to use this again. Like she's going to do this once and then she's going to learn how to do it in Excel and then, or numbers or whatever. And she's never going to go back, and so, but like the two most valuable tools in my, I mean, I use lots and lots of software, but Numbers and Keynote, I've made more money with those two applications than anything in my entire life. Anything. Like those are the only two apps that really matter for me because I calculate how much I'm going to charge a client and I show them why. That's, and that's the, those are the only two things that matter. But we're not teaching students how to do that. Michael and then Bill.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I think the corporate thing is also a little bit different than higher education or education in general. And then each level has its own sort of needs. I think, though, the one thing that it has been interesting to hear from some of the people that I know, especially students of mine who are starting out working in a virtual world. And, by and large, the group of students that have been able to be as successful as possible over the past year or close to a year and starting out. And so, I think what a lot of people are finding is it's just not clear yet what the sort of where that dividing line in the future will be. And I know similar to what John said on campus is, there is this talk of going back to normal with the slow realization that, normal is already caveated. So there won't be too many people in the room, which is good. But on a campus like Berkeley, if you say, okay, well, we still are filling up, rooms to 20% capacity, that means we have like 5 rooms on campus that could hold, 150 person class because 150 person people at 20% capacity means you're in a 700 person room, right? And so, I think a lot of it is the desire's there, and there is a recognition that we will be in some adaptive form going forward, but no one really knows where that barrier or where that line will be drawn. I do know from a lot of faculty who are overall still pretty excited about there's a lot of headaches that will hopefully go away when most people can be in person, but we have learned how to adapt much better to students who are taking classes who would need to be remote necessarily, or who would be taking an exam asynchronously or offline for whatever reason. And so I think there is a lot of hope, though, to suggest that especially the techniques we've been able to be adaptive will continue and go forward. The places where people initially relaxed course policies to be a little bit more forgiving, I think people are learning that we can do that and it's not the end of the world. And so, hopefully those things people are sort of warming up to continuing going forward. But the exact classroom setup, no one really, including the people at the top, really seem to have an answer yet, which is a little bit to be expected, but it's challenging.
Bill?
One of the things that's top of mind for me through the course of this, and it goes back a long way to when I saw some of my clients going to work from home, and I walked into tall office buildings that were virtually abandoned, is that real estate, which is one of the things that my retail clients always used to harp on. Real estate and labor are the two things that we can't escape. And this is going to disrupt, I think, all of that for a long time in business, in education, in everything. I mean, the high rise and the parking garage attendant to it becomes relatively less valuable real estate if people aren't going there. You mentioned Salesforce, that all employees now have the option to limit the amount of time they come to the building. So they've got X number of floors in that giant tower in San Francisco and really need a small fraction of that, which ripples out across everything they're doing. And then add Amazon to bring things to your door. And suddenly, what are the needs for cars and insurance? This is just massively huge.
The market opportunity is that a lot of adults are going to move out of the cities into remote areas, but they're still going to want high quality education, and they're going to be comfortable with doing it online, and for their kids, and that's going to be massive. One of the big problems with moving out of the cities or out of the, really out of a lot of certain areas are the schools. Like we picked our house where our house sits is because middle school was rated really high. And so, if now not all kids will be successful at that, but I think that there's going to be a big push as everyone starts leaving the urban areas, which they are. And I mean, I don't even know how many, all the stats are like California is just bleeding, like bleeding people, so it'll be interesting to see what the next round of population looks like. Next question.
Moving on to Ron Hoot. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's Emily Russo. Somebody moved the other one out. Has anyone found any great EDU conversations on Clubhouse that I should pay attention to?
I haven't seen. Yeah, I have it listed as one of my priorities, but I haven't seen the education stuff. I haven't seen much yet. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, as soon as someone can tell me how to find conversations that are interesting on Clubhouse, I would be hugely, hugely thankful, because every time I go to it, I say, I'm going to find some group of people who are talking about something interesting. And universally, except for our own office hours, because I know everybody there, it fails for me.
Well, by next week, we should be piping this into Clubhouse. So there'll be hopefully one. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, actually, I found some good ones.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't. Of course, I don't have like them at my fingertips right now, but like there are some people in there that are well known in ed tech that have been having conversations. But one of the conversations I joined was innovating the classroom going forward from COVID, and it was a great conversation. But I think it was a one-off conversation, not like a club. So. And to Bill's point, like I noticed the more things you put in as interests under your account, the more stuff comes up. And then when you scroll through, you can find more things. Like, so randomly throughout the day, I've just been going in and scrolling through, and I found some really great conversations that way. But I just want to know, like, if there's any good clubs on education to follow yet. I'm following like the nerdy or the Talk Nerdy to Me, which they have some good stuff for me, but it's more geared towards technology, not, like AR and VR and robots and stuff like that. But for the classroom teacher, I'm looking for some good stuff to pay attention to if anyone had anything.
Yeah. Being a club is hard. I mean, you have to have done it a couple times in a row, and then you apply, and you can only do one per person. And so someone asked about that. We are trying to do an office hour club. But when I signed up for it, a little bit of a process. Paul, then John, then Sky. Keep it pretty quick because we've got questions building up and running out of time.
There's one I like called Tech Talks. I find a lot of good stuff in there. And if you go to topics to explore, under that, there's education. And if you click on education, it'll bring up all the education related stuff. Okay,
John?
Yeah, there are a lot of conversations like our office hours that are trying to figure out how to get to Clubhouse. What does it mean? So like our computer using educator group Q has these conversations, and they're doing the same thing you are, Alex. Is there a Clubhouse play here? So I think you'll see more of them trying it, but I haven't locked on anything yet.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sky.
By the authority invested in me because I'm here for 300 plus days, Kara, Chris, Emily, you need to start a Clubhouse.
Your own Clubhouse.
Period.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
It'll be
you
fun.
are
That's
they. They don't exist. They have died. You are they. Go. Tag, you're it.
Next question.
Ron Hoot of West Michigan says, what is your prediction for, quote, the future of school, close quote, with regard to instruction delivery and student engagement in 2021-22? Does the hybrid thing become the new normal? I guess.
Good, Cara.
I just wanted to say something that I have found that really works. I think some people are going to be hesitant to go to technology no matter how long this lasts. But if you can get them an assistant that can help facilitate, can help do everything for them and work with them, that's really where the tech can become a little bit more favorable for them. So it's some people who might not want to go for the technology. If you can get them someone to assist them with it, it can work. I've seen it in one of the classes I'm teaching.
Emily, and then Michael.
I'll second what Kara said as far as that. We had tech buddies when it all went down in March, and like they paired me up with like two of the coaches who aren't tech based, and definitely grew them much faster than if they had to figure it out on their own. But as far as like what do we think hybrid will be the new normal? We're discussing in our district, we service the 9 districts of our county, and the thing that we're talking about is creating remote classroom for the students going forward, even if we go back to the new normal, where they can have the option to take high school or middle school online, but from teachers, not these packaged courses, where the kids sit and watch 50 videos and do 900 assignments and then take a test, but actually having just an online teacher. So the kids who thrive in this environment, who, really have an issue with going to school for whatever reason, it can go forward that way. So we are looking at it, but I don't know, going forward, how much we've committed to it.
I think that schools have to go that direction. If they don't, they'll cease to exist. I mean, the thing is the market is so big for doing that, that schools have to provide a cyber solution for students, because otherwise they'll be run over. They're not, and so it's good that I'm glad that they're paying attention to that and saying, hey, we're working on something, but they really have to do it in the next couple of years, or within 5 years, the pendulum will be moving. It won't be that it changed, but it won't ever go back, and it won't be public school systems, and so it's really, really important that they pay attention to that. There's a certain level of students and certain number of parents that, would jump on that. And it has to be 5% or 10% that jump on it before the whole thing destabilizes and starts going some other direction. Go ahead, Emily.
Well, I was going to say 4 years ago, we did a virtual AP course where we did AP for our districts that didn't have the courses, the smaller community schools that didn't have AP, and it fell on its face. But I think now that we've had this big push, that I think that it would open up as well.
It wouldn't have happened. To your point, the opportunity is now because of what happened. Not it couldn't have happened before this. It's that looking at it in the future is what makes a difference. Michael, and then Roscoe.
Yeah, I mean, I think the example that Emily just brought up is kind of exactly that, which is, I don't know, I don't think any of us really know for sure what hybrid will mean in the future, because that, it's probably not going to be what, current synchronous hybrid, people in the room and people participating synchronously online looks like. But if we compare 5 years ago, everyone in a room all the time, very little, if any, asynchronous delivery, to entirely remote, a large amount of asynchronous stuff. Somewhere in between, I think, is where things will settle. I mean, the AP course example is a good one. In a higher ed campus, what I alluded to earlier, things like virtual or remote exams for students, different kinds of projects. Even the course development that was online, 5 or 6 years ago, a lot of the techniques used back then were not that different. It's not like, video production or delivery has dramatically changed, but everyone's attitudes and sort of familiarity have. And so, I think for a lot of people, it'll be figuring out what tools they really can hopefully, whether that's kit specific or pedagogy, just pull into the classroom. And then ultimately probably, I know Roscoe made a comment, Mukana, same for Berkeley, running out of real estate space because of locations, especially in places like California. I think there'll be hopefully more intelligent use of figuring out, what needs to be in person and where and how we maximize that instead of just using all of it because we have it.
Yep. Roscoe?
Yeah, and satellite campuses is the answer for that. We do have remote campuses in South County, that kind of stuff. But real quick, this is you got to have, when you have a hybrid, you got to consider fiber optic days instead of snow days. My son's district, he works IT. They cut a fiber optic line and wiped out. We're about a city of 200,000 is where the district is. They wiped out literally half of the schools with one fiber optic cable cut, and they had no way of talking to the students for the entire day. It didn't come on until like 6 o'clock that night.
I think that Starlink will have a pretty big impact on that kind of thing. I don't think that Starlink will necessarily work. Starlink is Elon Musk's little process. I don't think that it will do well in synchronous conversation like this. We'll see. I don't think Zoom will work well on Starlink because of but I could be wrong. I think the latency and jitter will be too high, but people won't be cut off in the same way that they were before. Next question.
Moving to Sky's question, and Sky, you're going to have to probably weigh into this because I'm not quite sure about some aspects. Library in an elementary is his main question, but then he says, my wife is substituting for 4 months until the end of schools. Teachers, what suggestions, thoughts, ideas, and warnings? So for me,
my wife is substituting for a woman that's pregnant, so she gets to step into that role of working in the library.
So virtual librarian.
Well, maybe not.
Right.
Help.
So one of the things. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Erin.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said me. One of the things that my school's done is done Bitmoji classrooms on Google Slides, and they have different teachers or the librarian reading books and sharing them from a document camera, or finding celebrities that have read these books and have shared those, so the kids can click on whatever books they want, so they're still reading the book and following along with the speaker, but they're also seeing it from a video perspective instead of putting their hands on books and not knowing if a virus has traveled with it.
Go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say she'll want to talk to obviously the librarian that's going out. But there's, different resources online, like Storybook Online, where they have celebrities read stories aloud. So they have the books that the kids might be interested in. Epic Books is a really great website, although their privacy is pretty fishy. So we're not allowed to use it in New York anymore, but parents can sign up for it at home, and you can assign collections to kids. They can look for thousands of books that they might be interested by. And the library's position has changed recently. So depending on what group she's working with, maker spaces and or STEM challenges happen in the library. And that kind of control has been pushed onto the librarian more into districts where it's like, oh, let's do origami today. You know what I mean? Like those kind of activities with the kids, learning how to disseminate information. So like I have a wakelet of fake websites, like the octopuses and trees thing, and the dog island, where you can send your dog on vacation and to a tropical island, and they're all fake websites, but you show the kids these websites and you discuss like why. So things like Internet Be Awesome by Google, Be Awesome Internet or whatever it's called. Google has a whole curriculum and it has ideas and games. So if she gets that, overarching, like, these are the things that you're responsible for, tell her to, hit me up on Discord, or you can hit me up, and I got resources out wazoo for the library media specialists.
Oh, we got wazoo needs. Awesome.
I really got in touch this week with the importance of the librarian, in the sense that my kids love libraries. So that my son used to, like, back before COVID, would walk to the library, which is like 30 minutes from his thing, and hang out there until the evening, when we picked him up. But he preferred that. He'd go hang out with his friends and do it. My daughter, it was right next to the makerspace. So when makerspace closed, she'd walk over and spend hours and hours and hours in the library. They will not use the library at the middle school, because the librarian, they call her antisocial and weird. It weirds them out, and they won't go. So they, like, literally, it's not like they think all librarians are weird. They just think that one is. And the issue is just how important it is for kids to feel comfortable and accepted. And it's just, but because of that one person, they won't, like, normally we would like, why can't you just go to the library and wait? Because they like libraries so much. Why don't you just go to the library and we'll pick you up in 2 hours so that we're trying to sync time, right? Of when we do pickups. They don't want to do it because they don't like the librarian, and again, they like the other librarians and they like lots of libraries. It's just that one is basically depressing all the use of the entire facility. But that's why that person probably doesn't even know that they're doing it. It's probably some little tick that they have that drives the kids crazy, but the kids won't, it's literally annihilating the entire use of an entire facility because of one person's energy, and so it's so important to have the right people in the right place, or at least train them to be the right people in the right place. Chris?
A little idea for Sky and your wife. This might be an opportunity to team up for the librarian or the substitute librarian to team up with a school nurse, if there is one, because, this is a time to educate this generation about healthcare and self-care at a level that's far beyond what it was 2 years ago. So, bring in partners. That's always my solution to making myself more interesting, is bring in people more interesting than myself, and everybody wins.
That would be hard, Chris. You're pretty interesting.
Well,
but we're gonna have to move pretty quickly now because we're running out of time. I will. The next class setting that we set up on Saturdays, I promise to give 2 hours for education rather than one. So I apologize that we're getting pressed on, for only 1 hour.
It's a good problem. Leave them wanting more.
Exactly. But I just don't like leaving the question. I'm a big fan of no question left behind. So we'll try to go next question.
Comes from Sky as well. Where can teachers get the shot? Teachers are on the priority list. Are they on the priority list to get the shot?
I think it's different everywhere. Go ahead, Emily, real quick, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, state to state is different. Like Erin just said, she can't get it in Massachusetts, but I got it in New York. I was put on the priority list. The rollout was a total mess, but they're catching up and it's getting better. And I think they said there's 30 something states right now that are currently putting teachers on the priority. So that means that there's 20 something that aren't. So.
And even if they're on the list, I'm hearing there's challenges of finding locations. So I was hoping to find some tips, but okay. Thank you.
Next question.
James Babbitt of San Diego. How might teachers, inspired by watching brief TikTok videos, incorporate this type of presentation into their own teaching?
Go ahead, Emily.
So I was specifically looking for teachers to use on TikTok to use in the classroom, for teachers to download the video and put it into their presentations and things like that. And there are a couple of good teachers, especially science teachers, explaining, phenomenon and things like that they're doing these fun videos. I think it's like Mrs. B TV or Miss B TV on TikTok. She has millions of followers now, and she literally got started because she needed to use it as a way to get information to her students about science class. And so I think, looking at that and being able to think about, okay, how, like Alex has always talked to us about, like, how do we make this, like, grab their attention, keep it, even though it's short, keep it nice and concise and move quickly so that the kids can get it at the pace that they want to get it at and then move on. So I think, It's not been utilized very well outside of science that I've seen yet. Occasionally there's been like a history teacher that's explained something really well, like how a law works or why something came into place. But I haven't seen anyone else really go viral other than the science teachers right now.
Yeah, the cooking is a really good one to watch on TikTok because it's gotten down to a science. Like people are so good at it, and they're showing you how to cook an entire thing in a minute. And that's where you're seeing, in highly competitive areas, you're like cooking, you're seeing this group learning, that all the people who are doing cooking videos are learning from each other, and they're just tightening that solution. And it's probably the cleanest version of education. Now, it doesn't apply to everything, but I would definitely look at it because watch how much information they're packing into a minute is dramatic. And so it's so anyway, but remember that's what your students are watching all the time. You're competing with that. So when you go slower than TikTok, their brain has learned to absorb that information at that speed, and you're running at a quarter of that speed, and that's a problem for them. It's a problem for everybody. Next question.
Craig Hibbard is in with indoor air quality seems to be a mystery to schools. Mechanical engineers have been performing energy audits in schools for decades. They're adept at measuring, explaining, and improving indoor air quality. If COVID in schools is a national priority, why don't we press this expertise into service?
And they are. I mean, a lot of schools are getting rebuilt. Go ahead, Roscoe, real quick, and then we'll move on.
It costs money. It's a money thing.
Yeah, a lot of money. Next question.
Chris Wilder, Lafayette, Indiana. Since Mukana isn't available for the rest of us yet, unless Alex has a surprise under his hat, is there something else that will do a similar question setup for suggestions and upvoting?
I don't know. Go ahead, Michael.
There's not a lot. There's not a single tool that I think is perfectly great. I think a lot of people have access to something. Google Slides has a pretty nice Q&A tool where if you, I forget exactly how it works, but basically when you create a slide deck in Google Slides, you have an option to add like a Q&A thing. And when you share the link with your students, they can see the slides. I'm pretty sure they can upvote on questions, although it's been a while since I've used it. A lot of class forum tools that might be integrated into sort of whatever classroom management systems tools your school has will have some sort of discussion feature. And so, a very simple approach is to just, if you're already using two services, have one of those open aside. And then for schools that have access to it, the Zoom webinar Q&A feature, which we used to use for office hours months ago, is not perfect, but if you're using a Zoom webinar, it is integrated and it gives you upvoting and commenting and works well enough for for an individual class.
Next question.
Brian Schwartz of Baltimore says, in one-on-one or one-on-several distributed teaching of software applications, the right and left mouse clicks or mouse clicks in combination with keyboard depressions while pointing to a screen object. These actions are hard to convey with only a screen share. How would you do this?
There's a software that actually shows you what those are. Go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say, for the kids at school to teach them how to do a split screen on a Chromebook, I actually set up the two cameras with the OBS. So I had one camera on me and one camera on my hands on the keyboard, so the kids could see what I was doing, what I was pressing. And there is a program, I know what you're talking about, where
Mouse
it puts
Pose.
up the keyboard. Is it?
So it's mouse. Oh no, that's a mouse. No,
No.
I thought it was Mouse Pose. I think it is though. I think that.
Yeah, it is. Boink software, Mox Pose.
Yeah, Boinks.
When you do Boinks, when you do a function key or whatever, it says it's up on the screen.
Yeah, so it appears. It actually will show you. Mouse Pose is the one that, and it can highlight it. When Oliver was showing us Mimo, he would obviously use his own software to show that, but it'll show you the click, everything that you're clicking. It's probably
it is Mac only,
on the Mac.
Unfortunately,
he's what?
It's Mac only, unfortunately, or fortunately.
For us on Macs, it's fortunate. Go ahead, Bill.
In recording, ScreenFlow will follow the mouse, make it larger, and show you clicks and double clicks. The downside for me, and it still works with a trackpad because I haven't touched a mouse in probably 8 years now. So everything I do is trackpad based. I find it vastly more efficient than whipping my arm out 1,000 times a day, but that's just me.
I will just say this one more time. I'll say it once a week. I think I'm pretty clear where Apple's going with a lot of their software. Education groups should really strongly consider the Apple platforms as their platform of choice. Apple's about to dust everybody off. Like it is, winter is coming. For everything else, with the AR stuff that's about to hit and the 3D, the USDZ stuff that we have in motion, I'm going to guess that sometime in the next 2 years, maybe faster, we'll see it in Keynote and Pages and, everything else. And I think that, Apple doesn't know how to deal with education, which is why it has fallen behind, but the tools themselves are about to just leave everybody else in the dust. And there's no other way. It's like the M1 Mac. There's no way for anyone else to fix it because the media tools, are operating system level. And so the ability to get that anywhere else is going to be very low. So it's coming. Roscoe?
I found a thing called Pointer Focus that says it's Mouse Pose for Windows. Pointer Focus.
Pointer
Put up a
Focus.
YouTube video.
That's great. Next question.
Paul Prusakowski of Gainesville, Florida. A client is asking me to use Kahoot. Any best practices suggestions?
What was the one that's a competitor to Kahoot that was made by the high school student? I couldn't remember what the name of it was. What is?
It's GimKit.
Oh, GimKit. Okay.
GimKit. Yeah.
Well, so this is a dual question for me and Paul because Paul's been asked to do a presentation for a group and they use Kahoot apparently. So we're trying to see how we can use the platform that they're on.
Emily and then Aaron.
Well, I was just going to say Kahoot's great. It has a lot of options, but it's one of those, I don't know if they've changed it because they prevented us from using it in New York this year, but it used to be like you had to present the question on the main screen and then the kids or whoever's playing along just got the shapes on their device. They didn't have the question or the answers. They just had the shapes and the colors. So if you're getting ready to do it, test it out before you do it live, just because it may not work the way you think it's going to work.
My daughter, let me see if I can, hold on. Let me, Aaron, I'm going to see if I can pull my daughter into this conversation. Well, because she just was talking about it. Go ahead, Aaron. Go ahead.
So my kids use the GimKit games and I go through that with them. But there's another site that I found recently called Blookit, or it's BLOOKET.com. And it's kind of similar to GimKit and to Kahoot. There's you can pick different people's kits and sets, and there's different games they can get and play. And they get like little avatars of like animals or things like that. And they seem to enjoy it. So just another option.
She's not responding. So I don't know. I was going to try to get her. We were just talking about Kahoot yesterday. So I was going to get her. My kids are very good at being, I know you'd never think of this, but they're pretty good at critical analysis of what they're using. So I was going to get her to come and do a review for us, but she's not available. Anyway, next, the next question is, has Zoom OSC started? No, because it's 8:58. It's not 9 o'clock yet. So no, it hasn't started yet.
You're not late.
Yeah, you're not late because it's not time yet. Anyway, well, we did actually get through all the questions. I thought we were going to go way deep on those. And I didn't feel like we really sped up. Such a great conversation. It's one of my favorites. And I kind of like, we don't move quite as quickly through the questions. We kind of mull through them as a group, which I kind of enjoy the pace of just kind of thinking through a lot of those things. So anyway, it's always great to see the educators here, see everyone here. I'm glad you're showing up on Saturdays because when any one of you is missing, I miss it. I'm like, oh, Emily's missing, or Aaron's missing, or Cara's missing, or Steve, or Roscoe, or or Chris. All like there's all these folks that are there, and I feel like the conversation is, Michael was gone for a little while, and I was like, when is Michael coming back? So you're all missed when you
The
don't
show
show
has
up.
a great casting director.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, John. Then we're gonna
real quick. My wife is a school nurse and she does K through 12. She just received her second shot this week and she did get sick 24 hours after she received the second.
Yeah.
And then she was better the following day.
Which vaccine did she get?
Moderna.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got my Moderna second shot on Thursday, and Friday it felt like I did a workout I had no business doing. All my joints hurt and I couldn't get comfortable. But then 12 hours later, I was fine. So
Good. All right. We're jumping. Thanks, everybody. Great conversation, and we'll see you next week. All right. Take care.
I want to see Emily.